never believed in ghosts, at least, not until I moved into the house on Birch Lane. That place changed everything. It wasn't just the creaky floorboards or the strange draft that seemed to follow me everywhere. It wasn't even the faint, shadowy figures I sometimes glimpsed out of the corner of my eye. No, it was something far worse. It was the presence that never showed itself. The unseen visitor that whispered my name in the dark. The one I could never escape. At first, the house was everything I wanted. It was old, yes, but with character. The wooden beams above the living room were dark with age, and the smell of dust and mildew lingered in the air like a forgotten memory. The rent was low, practically a steal, and after years of cramped apartments and noisy neighbors, I figured this house would give me the peace I needed. The first few days were peaceful enough. I unpacked, settled in, and tried to ignore the unsettling silence that seemed to wrap itself around the house like a thick, suffocating blanket. It wasn't a normal silence. It was the kind of silence that made you aware of every breath, every creak of wood, every movement of the air. I told myself it was just my mind playing tricks. Old houses creaked, that's all. But then, the whispers started. It was the third night. I had just gotten into bed, the sheets cool against my skin, when I heard it. A faint, almost imperceptible sound, like someone breathing in the darkness. At first, I thought it was the house itself settling, or maybe the wind rattling the window panes. But the longer I lay there, the more certain I became that it wasn't the wind. It was a voice, low and soft, like a murmur coming from the corner of the room. I strained my ears, trying to make out the words, but whatever it was saying, I couldn't catch it. "Hello," I whispered into the darkness. Silence. I waited, my heart thudding in my chest. Nothing. I turned over, dismissing it as another strange noise of an old house, and forced myself to sleep. The next night, the whispers came again, louder this time. It was impossible to ignore. I was awake now, and the air felt thick with something I couldn't identify. Something that made my skin crawl. I held my breath, waiting for it to stop, but it didn't. The whispers were closer now, almost like someone was standing right by the foot of my bed, their voice so soft that I could barely hear it. "Are you there?" I sat up, my heart pounding, sweat dampening my palms. I glanced around the room, but it was empty. Only shadows filled the corners. I could hear my own breath, shallow and erratic, but there was something else, something I couldn't see. I knew it then. There was someone, or something, in the room with me. I wasn't alone, but when I turned on the light and looked around the room, I saw nothing. Nothing but the shadows. Nothing but the emptiness of a house that had begun to feel far too alive. The next few days were a blur of unease. I tried to shake off the experience, telling myself it was just my imagination. Stress, perhaps. Moving into a new place always did strange things to my mind. But every night, the whispers came again. Always just at the edge of my hearing. Always faint enough to make me doubt whether they were real. It became a ritual. I'd sit in bed, staring into the darkness, listening, waiting. My nerves stretched tight like a bowstring. Then, one night, the whisper changed. It wasn't just a murmur anymore. It was a voice, a clear, unmistakable voice that spoke directly into my ear. "Come outside," it said. I froze, blood running cold in my veins. I didn't move, couldn't move. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it might burst from my chest. Come outside now. I scrambled out of bed, terrified, my legs shaking so violently I could hardly stand. I didn't know if I should run or call someone. anyone, but I felt drawn to the door. A cold, gnawing curiosity gripped me, and before I knew it, my hand was on the doorknob, turning it and stepping out into the night. The yard was empty. No one. Nothing. The wind howled in the trees, the only sound, but there was no one there to answer the call. I stood in the cold, my breath fogging the air, scanning the shadows, my mind racing with questions. Who was calling me? Why? Was it a prank? Was it someone trying to mess with me? I turned to go back inside, but as I stepped through the doorway, the voice spoke again. You shouldn't have opened the door. I spun around, my heart lodged in my throat. The door slammed shut behind me. I couldn't remember locking it. Panic surged through me. I tried to turn the knob, but it wouldn't budge. It was as if something on the other side was holding it shut. The air around me grew thick, heavy, as if the house itself was alive, holding me there, keeping me from leaving. The whispers were back. They filled the space around me, a cacophony of voices whispering my name over and over. Elise, Elise.